Let's begin! In-Depth is a randomly generated roguelike VR shooter with a randomly generated medieval world. You only have one life in each run and your health can be depleted very quickly, as only getting hit just a few times will result in a game over screen. When you die, you are taken back to the main hub area called Sanctuary and the levels reset. Each time the level layouts are different and the enemies appear in different locations. Some enemies will charge at you and swing their sword right in your face, and some fire arrows that whiz through the air. The sound of the wind is amazing as the arrows pass you by and barely miss your head. You can deflect both of these dangers with your shield. Raising it whilst being attacked will stagger enemies and can even knock some of them over. To fight back, you have two options. You start the game with a bow and arrow and eventually unlock a crossbow. Each one has its advantages and disadvantages. The bow allows a quicker reload speed, but you are unable to move whilst aiming. The crossbow reloads slower, but you are able to move when aiming. Achieving a headshot with either of these is most probably the most satisfying headshot out of all the PSVR shooter games I've played, thanks to the excellent splat sound. Not only does the impact sound so good, but visually it's a treat too, as gold explodes everywhere. Overall, the game's visuals are amazing though, as it has very sharp and crisp textures throughout. There are two main areas that are randomly generated in the game. These are Purgatory and Paradise Lost. Even with the randomly generated levels, new playthroughs can visually look quite similar. The difference really is only from the layouts. The first level layouts are quite flat, but often have quite a few routes that you can take, which is quite different to the second area. In the second area, there is a lot more verticality. Sure, you can teleport and walk across rooftops in the first area, but the second area demands it. Not knowing what is going to be waiting for you after you have teleported to a platform above is quite nerve-wracking. The game is very hard, especially when you first start playing. You will need to get used to the different enemy types and how to dodge efficiently. You can do a quick small dodge or a long teleport jump by firing an arrow. You will need to get into a rhythm of doing both for certain situations. Enemies do drop items every so often. These are extra health and different types of arrows. The health drops only replenish one bar, but finding one is still a sigh of relief as every little bit counts. If you are close to death, you hear a heartbeat, which makes the game so much more intense. There is so many different arrow types in the game, and they all have different effects, such as the ice ones that freeze enemies in place, a multi-target shot that damages 3 enemies at once that are close together, and the exploding arrow sticks into its prey first, before exploding. Some are more powerful than others, but are balanced as they come in less quantity. These power-ups can also be bought from a shop with your hard-earned gold. This shop appears after passing a section of each area, and just like seeing a drop from an enemy, you do let out a sigh of relief, especially when one appears right before one of the game's boss battles. There are 2 bosses that you will come face to face with. The first can be beaten quite easily after some practice, but the second has such a massive difficulty spike that it can ruin the experience a bit. I won't show the second in case of spoilers, so instead I'll just voice my thoughts. He has a move where he can kill you nearly instantly, and it's quite hard to dodge. It's actually possible to only see him for around 10 seconds before he uses this one move, and of course, if you die, you're sent back to the beginning of the game. It comes across as very unfair, and is sure to make even the most patient gamer rage quit. When you do finally beat him, the 2 previous areas reset and enemies have more health. It's still intense though, as your score is kept, and dying means the game will restart over again like before. Luckily, you don't have to keep on playing through these loop of levels constantly, as you can take a break by entering a checkpoint that is found at the beginning of each area. These will save your game, but when you return and die, these checkpoints are gone for good and your save point is erased. When you first start playing, the main aim of the game isn't necessarily always to get as far as possible, as there are achievements to unlock. These are found in the main starting area, and although they are called achievements, they really do serve as the game's upgrade system, as completing an achievement will unlock extra gameplay benefits, such as more gold rewarded for headshots, and even new enemies will start appearing in the world. After you die, if you have completed an achievement, it will be displayed along with all the enemies you killed. There is also challenge portals that appear in the world. There is 3 in total, and beating one will unlock the next that will appear during a new playthrough. Teleporting through one will take you to a new area with different enemies to defeat. These are absolutely worth doing, as they allow you to kill more enemies, resulting in new achievements being unlocked and more gold being collected. They can be quite a bit harder to complete than the main areas though, but the risk is both exciting and rewarding. Now the game can be played with either the DualShock controller or 2 Move controllers, and can be played while stood or seated, but unfortunately the game does become so much more harder when playing with the moves. Simply moving around the world takes more time, which ultimately makes your dodging speeds decrease, and it's more time consuming when lining up a perfect headshot. As this is a game that requires quick aiming and dodging skills, it makes playing with the moves a bit pointless. The developers have just updated the DualShock and moves to have smooth turning though, and you can adjust the sensitivity, so it is nice to see improvements, but honestly, unless we see new move controllers with analog sticks, I don't think the moves will ever be a decent way to play this game. They also have tracking issues when playing with a bow and arrow, as when pulling back an arrow the moves often overlap each other, forcing them to jump around on screen. It is incredibly frustrating when your reaction speeds are of utmost importance. As the game is meant to be played over and over again, there isn't really a completion time, but if you want a reason to keep on playing, you will be happy to know that the game does come with a massive trophy list. A few trophies are rewarded for doing things in one playthrough, such as achieving a certain amount of headshots, looting a certain amount of gold, or completing an area in a fast time. It's a very good trophy list overall, especially as it adds additional challenges for the players to complete, but some of the enemy grind trophies may be a little too much for some. I'm not sure if we'll ever see the platinum completion percent at a high number. I really did have a love-hate relationship with this game, right up until I beat the second boss for the first time, and then my feelings all turned into love. Knowing that I could beat him again turned the horrible anticipation of coming face to face with him into excitement. Although that one deadly move he has still does tempt me into rage quitting from time to time. If you stick with it though, and aim towards completing the game's many achievements, the game does get very addictive. You are constantly rewarded as long as you take a look at the objectives, and they are very fun to complete. I kept telling myself just one more attempt, and even when I wasn't playing it, I found myself thinking about it, which is quite rare, as when I normally review a game, I simply move on to the next. While that top 10 online leaderboard is constantly popping up in my mind. I often talk about scoreboards and how they will encourage replayability, but I think with this game, gamers who do like to high score chase really will get the most out of it, due to there not being a storyline to follow, and the addition of being able to send challenges to people to beat your high score. You can only send these challenges to random people, and not people on your friends list. It is a bit of a shame. I really see playing with the DualShock controllers and Move controllers as the game's 2 difficulty modes. I really hope in the future we see scoreboards attached for each of the controller types, as it would give a proper reason for playing with the moves. The difficulty really does make this game really only appeal to a certain type of gamer, more so than a lot of other PSVR games out there, especially as when you die, you return to the beginning. Taking your time and getting the achievements does give a great sense of progression, and it does make the game a bit easier thanks to the new arrow types that pop up in the world. Overall, it's a hard but fair game for most of the time. The more time you invest, the more you are rewarded, and doing so is so much fun thanks to the combat being so expertly crafted. It is absolutely a game that any hardcore gamer should take a look at. In Death is an amazing game that I just can't get out of my head. Not only do I get a sense of progression from the achievements, but in each playthrough I really do see my skills improve. The combat truly has been perfected. As always, if you enjoyed this review, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more PlayStation VR content.